To get Kechari Mudra, we practice Talabya Kriya, which is described below. Talabya Kriya. Start with the tongue in a relaxed position with the tip lightly touching the back of the upper teeth. Press the body of the tongue against the upper palate to create a suction cup effect. Don't turn your tongue backwards. When you have created the suction cup effect, lower the bottom jaw until you clearly feel the stretch in the lingual frenulum, the small fold of tissue under the tongue that attaches it to the base of the mouth. Release the tongue with a clicking sound, then stick it out of the mouth and point it toward the chin. At the beginning, do not exceed 10 repetitions a day to avoid straining the frenulum. Eventually, you will do 50 repetitions in about 2 minutes, 110 to 120 seconds. Some do not understand immediately how to make their tongue adhere to the upper palate before opening the mouth and stretching the frenulum. Sometimes, even when they are shown in person, they are still not able to do it correctly. Many practice Talabya Kriya incorrectly by instinctively turning their tongue backwards. The main mistake is concentrating too much on where to place the tip of the tongue. The suction effect is obtained with the whole body of the tongue. The tip of the tongue should be relaxed. Note: the technique of the Talabya Kriya can be enriched by massaging both the muscles of the tongue and the frenulum with one's own fingers. Lahiri Mahasaya was absolutely against cutting the frenulum to obtain faster and easier results. In Hatha Yoga books, there are different suggestions for lengthening the frenulum. One which is well known one is wrapping a piece of cloth around the tongue and, with the help of the hands, gently pulling, relaxing and repeating different times, the cloth both horizontally and also up, toward the tip of the nose. I hope that it is clear that Talabya Kriya and Kechari Mudra are completely different. Open your mouth in front of a mirror during the first part of Talabya Kriya to see the hollow parts on each side of the frenulum which appear isolated from the body of the tongue. During Kechari Mudra, it is the uvula that comes forward and only the root of the tongue is visible. Talabya Kriya is a technique that, besides its utility to achieve Kechari Mudra, creates a perceivable relaxing effect on the thinking process. Therefore, Talabya Kriya should not be considered a simple lingual frenulum stretching process. When the tongue sticks to the palate and the mouth is opened, in that instant the energetic split between our body and the reserve of static prana located in the upper part of our head is momentarily healed. This introduces you, in the best of the ways, into the meditation state. Even after mastering Kechari Mudra, Talabya Kriya should continue to be practiced because it creates a perceivable relaxing effect on the thinking process. It is not known why stretching the frenulum reduces thought production, however, anyone practicing the technique can readily verify this. Oddly enough, Talabya Kriya doesn't require concentrating on anything, it is purely physical. Just as an attempt to justify this, we can say that merely pressing the tongue against the upper palate and maintaining the suction effect on the palate for 10 to 15 seconds can, in and of itself, generate sensitivity in the medulla area in a very short time. The detail of extending the tongue plays an important part too. When the tongue is fully extended, it pulls on some cranial bones and leads to decompression of the whole area. Check if you are near to Kechari Mudra. After several months of regular practice of Talabya Kriya, it is counselled to check how much you are near to Kechari Mudra. The test is whether the tip of the tongue can touch the uvula, utilizing the fingers to push the base of the tongue inward. If the tip of the tongue touches the uvula, then for some minutes a day, try to push with more force the bases of the tongue inward until the tip goes beyond the uvula and touches the pharynx behind it. One day, the tip of the tongue will enter a centimeter or so into the nasal pharynx but slip out when the fingers are removed. But after some more days, on removing the fingers, the tip of the tongue will remain trapped in that position. This is the turning point. The soft palate, the part from which the uvula hangs, acts like an elastic band and creates a hook. This prevents the tongue from slipping out. By striving each day to practice at least 6 to 12 Kriya Pranayam with the tongue in this position, despite some discomforts such as an increase in salivation and occasional swallowing, the practice of Kechari Mudra becomes easy and comfortable. After about 3 weeks of practicing in this way, you should be able to reach the same position without using the fingers. The tongue will be able to insert itself into the nasal pharynx cavity. There will still be enough space left in the cavity to inhale and exhale through the nose. Kriya literature affirms that the tongue can be pushed even farther up. Any good anatomy book will reveal that the tongue cannot extend any farther when it fills up the nasal pharynx. That assertion should therefore be understood as a hint to what a normal person thinks is happening. Actually, by extending the tongue to its limit, it is possible to experience a great attraction toward the region between the eyebrows along with the sensation of having reached, with the tip of the tongue, a higher position. First effects of Kechari Mudra. During the first 3 weeks of Kechari Mudra, you experience dizziness and fogged up mental faculties. Be prepared for this eventuality and consider abstaining from driving and any work involving a significant proportion of risk during this time. Kechari Mudra has a remarkable effect upon the state of our mind. When you become stable in this mudra, you will notice a quieting of all useless, unwanted thoughts. The internal chatter ceases, silence and transparency become the features of one's consciousness. The mind works in a more restrained way and enjoys an essential rest. Each thought becomes more concrete and precise. After several months of tireless practice, your tongue will reach the junction of the nasal passage inside the hole in the palate. The soft tissue above the holes in the internal part of the nostrils is alluded to in Kriya literature as the uvula above the uvula. The tip of the tongue reaches this small area and remains stuck there comfortably. About the necessity of Kechari Mudra to practice the higher Kriyas, Kriya literature affirms that Kechari Mudra is decisive to receive initiation into the higher Kriyas. There is nothing unusual that a Kriya teacher wants the student's mouth opened in front of them and see the tongue disappear into the nasal pharynx. However great the effect of Kechari Mudra, I firmly believe it is important but not indispensable. The affirmation that I have often heard, until one is established in Kechari Mudra, one cannot achieve the state of eternal tranquility, is false. We cannot conceive that the achievement of Kechari creates a sharp division among people. Confined to a lower class are those poor little fellows who will never get the higher Kriyas just because they don't succeed in realizing something physical that doesn't depend on their efforts but on their constitution. They will never succeed in speeding up their spiritual path like those Kriyabans that nature has endowed with a longer bridle or with a nasal pharynx more accessible to the tip of the tongue. The whole idea is absurd. PY's decision to allow initiation into the higher Kriyas to those unable to practice Kechari Mudra should have our full praise. Considering Lahiri Mahasaya's attitude to partake of our imperfection and suffering, I believe